Case trains 20 police officers on community policing to mitigate crime. Severe drought disrupts the education of over 1 million children in Somalia. And the Gambia Press Union condemns the arrest and detention of Ghana online editor-in-chief. Well, this and more coming ahead on The World Today. Hello, you are watching The World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante, and now the news in detail. And we begin with security matters because 20 police officers have been successfully undergone a 2-week training of trainers on community-oriented policing. Organized by GAZE, the training aims to capacitate participants with value and professional skills required in the implementation of strategic community policing. Moses Imendi reports.
The community-oriented policing training of trainers and coordinators jointly conducted by the German Agency for International Cooperation and the German Support Team in the Gambia took place to July 7. As part of the joint German and EU support to the Gambia Police Force, the training seeks to repurpose community policing in the day-to-day operations of the police force, rendering it responsive to the needs of citizens. The training capacitated participants with the requisite professional skills and knowledge to implement strategic community policing. Speaking at the closing ceremony of the 2-week training, Sven Stad-Trecher, GPST coordinator, urged the participants to pass on their newly acquired skills to their colleagues in the police force. He highlighted that the police should work hand in glove with citizens to ensure an effective security service delivery in the country.
You may conduct very, very successful operations and arrests, but you won't be able to endure this effort if you do not engage and empower your community, key citizens of your community, faith-based groups, and other community groups. Because realistically, police officers, they cannot be on every street corner all the time. It is impossible. So therefore, having the eyes and ears, and especially the support of your community, will make your police force more effective and stronger. Citizens have always been and will continue to be at the heart of any successful policing. It always centers around the citizen. And the support of your community is absolute key to deliver quality policing. So, because police and their communities can only thrive when they work closely together and have a high degree of trust between both of them.
According to him, a chain of trainings by his organization will follow as part of the ongoing efforts to transform the police into a modern police force. Omar Dabo, Police Commissioner for the KMC region, said the Gambia Police Force is undergoing a reform process and therefore the timing of the training is ideal.
This training course could not have come at a better time. The Gambia Police Force undergoing a rigorous reform process to reposition ourselves to provide democratic policing services to the public. The training modules, I understand, covered diverse aspects of policing in a democratic dispensation. I gathered that the participants were introduced to peace support operations and the responsibility to protect civilians. I believe you are equipped with theoretical and practical tools to protect civilians in accordance with your mandate as police officers.
He is convinced that the participants are now armed with the necessary tools needed to successfully implement community policing and urged them to operationalize what they have learned. The TOT was co-funded by the EU. Enya Brown, representative of the EU delegation, explained various areas the EU focuses on to inspire transitional justice in the Gambia.
When we decided to work with the GIZ, they sat down with the management of the GPF, and a few areas were selected to focus on. There was the enhance of the human resources management capacities, facilitating dialogue with the civil society through community policing, ensuring an internal complaints mechanism, also the refurbishment and construction of some model police stations, training on mediation and sexual and gender-based violence. A few weeks back, one of the trainings that we had a few weeks back, and providing some equipment to facilitate this effective policing. This all inscribes itself in the EU support to transitional justice. The Gambia is still within the transitional process.
While delivering the vote of thanks, Idrissa Sanyang, Assistant Superintendent of the police, said it's a privilege to partake in the training that has equipped them with strategies and techniques to implement community policing. The occasion was closed with a presentation of certificates to the 20 participants. Moses Mendy, Eyeafrica News.
Now, moving on, elsewhere, more than 1 million Somali children have been forced out of school or could not continue their education due to the adverse effects of the long drought that struck the country. Despite the prevailing challenges in the affected areas, the United Nations Children Agency, UNICEF, is working with local authorities to find mitigating measures. Now, aside from the drought, children and teachers are also being affected by the insecurity and weak governance of the country. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Even before the drought, many children in central Somalia were out of school due to conflict and insecurity. Now the authorities in the region say over 50 schools have been forced to close due to the severe drought in the area. Hundreds of children and their teachers are currently living in camps for the entirely displaced.
We did a survey in the region on the impact of the drought, and we have sadly documented some schools that were closed 4 and 5 months ago due to the famine. The parents, their children, together with school teachers who are pastoralists living in the villages, were displaced to bigger cities due to unbearable conditions.
The United Nations agency responsible for providing humanitarian and development aid to children says it is closely working with Somali authorities to help displaced students.
We've been trying to work with ministries of education at federal level and at state level, and also with great partners to try and get children in school and keep them in school. But of course, when a drought happens, the first thing often to go is education. And so those children are taken out of school, especially the few girls that may be in school are now taken so that they can go and do the water, get the water. So they go to the well, or they go to where the truck's arriving, or the borehole.
Despite the challenges, UNICEF Somalia says it is doing all it can to bring displaced children back to school.
We don't have a great system where we can put them into the local schools or really do emergency education. So we're looking at that. Of course, we need money to do that, with delivery of school kits, with delivery of recreation kits for the children to play with, all of those things. So we are very worried because in some areas there's a very poor education numbers attending school anyway, and it gets worse in a drought.
Apart from the climate-related shocks such as recurrent drought and flooding, other challenges including conflict and weak governance are key challenges facing education sector here in Somalia.
Now, elsewhere in the continent, Ethiopian authorities have inked a multi-billion-dollar agreement with Turkey's investors to explore the country's mining industry. The MOU focuses on various sectors, including mining and gas exploration, among others. The deal is also expected to provide employment opportunity for thousands of Ethiopians when they set the ball rolling. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Ethiopia is a country of 120 million people, which is endowed with almost all kinds of natural resource, but majority remains untapped. Investors have been keen to tap into these resources, including this group, which came halfway across the world to explore the Ethiopian mining industry. They represent the globally recognized Turkey-based Çelik Holdings and its subsidiaries.
I can assure you at the presence of everybody that Çelik Holding will concretize those MOUs as soon as possible, and we will hopefully build the fertilizer plant and also explore gas and oil and also some mines in Ethiopia.
According to the MOU signed between the Ethiopian Ministry of Mines and Turkey investors, the latter will invest hundreds of millions of US dollars in natural gas exploration and development, fertilizer plants, and gold production. Ethiopia's mines minister, Takale Uma, explained the significance of the investment from Turkey.
The natural gas drilling and exploration, we're bringing more company to drill and explore. And Ogaden Basin, in Rift Valley, and in the southern part of Ethiopia, and the Çelik Group is one of them. And we are providing data, necessary data, for them to have the prospect. Then we work on how they will get the exploration and drilling license for Çelik Group, and it is signifying the move that Ethiopian government is undertaking for the development of natural resources like natural gas, petroleum, copper, and gold.
In this gallery found inside the Ministry of Mines, one can see Ethiopia's potential in the industry. From natural gas to gold and tantalum, it looks like the country has them in large quantities. The minister says Ethiopia has a lot to deliver to its citizens through the mining sector. And that is why this agreement is substantial for Ethiopia, as it's one of the biggest deals signed in the mining sector with foreign companies. Thousands of citizens are expected to get employment opportunities once the deal takes effect.
I hope that if we start the fertilizer production in Ethiopia, one thing, we can create more jobs, and we stop the substitution that we're importing from overseas, and we start using our domestic natural resources. And in the meanwhile, we can start exporting. So it is one of the pillar strategy that Ethiopian government has planned for agriculture modernization and increasing product and productivity, and to produce more products. So the GDP contribution in upcoming years is too many.
Ethiopia has banked on its mining sector to boost its economic growth and wants to plug its budget deficit by tapping into its resource. And for that to happen, the Horn of Africa nation is carrying out reforms to enable more investors participate in its mining industry.
And from the report there from the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, we now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin live from our studios in Banjul. And now to the rest of the stories. Now, the Gambia Press Union on Tuesday expressed concern over the recent arrest and detention of Yusuf Taylor, editor-in-chief of Guyana Online Media. Now, in a statement, the GPU president said the union is dismayed by the unfortunate never-ending trend of journalists being assaulted by security personnel especially the police. The umbrella body of journalists in the Gambia also said it received official reports that on the 5th of July 2022, Yusuf Taylor, a journalist who is also the editor-in-chief of Ghana Online, was arbitrarily arrested and reportedly charged with obstructing a police officer in the execution of his duty. Now, according to Mr. Taylor, Mr. Taylor was detained at the Senegambia police station for 4 hours after attempting to report on the latest arrest of Yahya Jammeh and Lamin C of the national charity Global Home of Medical Mission. Global Home, the statement added, Global Home is involved in a dispute with the government of the Gambia over a plot of land for which the former has obtained court judgment and in its favor as being the rightful owner of the land on which the government is set to embark for the construction of a hotel for the 2022 OIC Summit. Mr. Stello has been constantly reporting on this case, including fact-checking government statements and narratives on the matter, and had found some of these claims to be false or misleading. He was released late Tuesday evening and said to have informed by the police that he is charged with obstruction. Taylor was arrested after police officers forcefully tried to remove him from the station premises, thereby assaulting him when he tried to inquire about the detention of the Global Home representatives, Yahya Jammeh and Lamin C. The GPU called on the Gambia police force to exercise restraint and cease from the use of force on journalists who have a significant mandate of not only holding the government to account, but promoting the public right to know, a fundamental aspect of freedom of expression, access to information, and the promotion of democracy and good governance. On Tuesday, July 7, 2022, Mr. Taylor informed the GPU that he was called by the police and asked to report to the same police station where he was held on Tuesday. He is also asked to report on the police on July 8 at 1 p.m. The alleged offense, according to GPU, is considered assault under Section 230B of the Gambia Criminal Code, which carries a 2-year prison term if one is found guilty. The Union Secretary General Modu Juve urged the police to drop the charges of obstruction against Mr. Stello without condition and stop the continuous harassment of journalists by asking him to be reporting to the Senegambia police station, noting that journalists are not the enemy and believe that the principle of the Constitution can only be upheld when journalists are allowed to do their work without harassment, intimidation, and arbitrary arrest. He said the GPU is committed, ready, and willing to continue engaging the authorities or the state authorities and security sector leaders with a view to promoting and enabling an environment for press freedom, especially with regards to the safety of journalists. This statement ends. Now, moving on to our last story now, because preparations have begun for Egypt's maiden national dialogue meant to boost political inclusiveness to be coordinated by a recently formed National Dialogue Department. Now, according to the organizers, the political discourse will be centered on different topics that concern Egyptian citizens with a view to bring consensus among all participants. While many Egyptians embrace the political dialogue initiated by the president, not everyone is allowed to attend the conference. Here's more details of that in this report.
The Board of Trustees for the Egyptian National Dialogue held their first meeting on Tuesday. They've set the bylaws and the code of conduct which will regulate and structure what is expected to be the biggest political conference Egypt has ever seen. According to the board, the aim is to reach full agreement between participants over all topics that concern Egyptian citizens.
The Board of Trustees will moderate the dialogue, organize its schedule, and will report all its findings to the President of Egypt. Every issue must pass only by consensus. In case there are 3 different approaches to the same issues, which the board sees valid, they will all be reported to the President. This is to set aside the concept of influence the majority or minority will have in the dialogue.
The National Dialogue is sending an open invitation to all Egyptians to join. Its board, however, says the only exception will be the Muslim Brotherhood group, people with criminal records, and those who refuse to recognize the legitimacy of the 2014 Constitution.
We had planned to meet for an hour. Instead, we stayed for 7. That reflects how intense the talks were and how much details were discussed. What is more important is the actual dialogue. All that happened today was preparation for the dialogue to take place between all political powers invited to join or interested in joining.
This step indicates that Egypt's political leadership wishes to include all political and societal groups in creating a new republic. This includes having bigger political activity, diversifying opinions over all issues that the country faces. There are global challenges which Egypt needs to approach differently. To do that, we must first establish a national platform for people to talk.
The National Dialogue's Board of Trustees will form its subcommittees during its next meeting on July 19. These committees will lead the talks on specific topics with experts and citizens concerned with issues on its agenda. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi called for the dialogue in April, aiming that it will include all political forces without exceptions or discrimination. Over 96,000 applied to participate in the National Dialogue. Their application must include their insights about the topics they're concerned with, so the number of topics to be discussed is huge. The figure is also an indication to how much it is important for the country to open up space for its people to engage in discussing the country's policies.
And that report there from the Egyptian capital, Cairo, brings us to the end of this news edition. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.